Leaning against the door, her lips were pressed in a thin line, watching her brother walking back and forth, dressed in black pants and crisp white shirt, yet he was radiating nervous energy around him. While he was continuously wiping the beads of sweat from his forehead, despite his usual composed demeanor, today Yogi seemed anything but calm. Come on, Yogi, you are sweating more than a marathon runner in the Sahara Desert. If you keep this up, you will need a towel instead of a suit. Yogi shot her a glare over his shoulder, his hand still wiping away the beads of sweat from his forehead. Very funny, Yun, he snapped. I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life. She walked over him, now standing in front of him, to stop him from walking back and forth, or she is going to have a headache. You're just getting pre-wedding nervousness. It's completely normal. Normal, huh? Tell me, to that sweat dripping down my face? She chuckled, but he looked really anxious. She sighed and walked towards the dressing table and came back with a roll of tissue. Here, use this before you start dripping on the suit. We would not want the bride to think you are crying before the ceremony even begins. Yungi rolled his eyes before snatching the tissue paper. He sighed. It's not that, I'm just nervous. I don't know what's wrong with me. I should be happy, but instead I feel like I'm about to jump off a cliff. Hey, look at me, she said gently, reaching out to place a reassuring hand on his arm. You love her, don't you? You have got this. But Yungi shook his head. It's not about her. It's about me. I'm afraid I will mess this up. That I will ruin everything because I love her so damn much. You won't mess anything up. You're going to walk out there, marry the love of your life, and live happily ever after. And if you ever doubt that, I will be just sitting in the front seat, waiting for the signal to ditch your riding with you. Yumi chuckled, his tension slowly easing. You know, sometimes I think you are a bad influence on me. Says who? You, who is rethinking about his marriage decision? That's little sister. Now let me help you wear this tie because I don't want you to die by accidentally strangling yourself. Yun eyes swept across the wedding reception, her gaze sharp and her hands absent-mindedly swirling her drink as she made mental notes of the arrangements. Everything seemed to be in place, the decoration immaculate, the music setting the perfect atmosphere. Her attention was suddenly captivated by a familiar figure standing with her brother. It was him, the one she had been waiting for, and oh, did he look fine? The curve peeking out just so the tie, a shade of navy blue, added a touch of sophistication to his presence. His hair was styled to perfection, each strand perfectly in place, framing his chiseled feature with effortless elegance. Faint smile graced his lips as he engaged in conversation with her brother, his gaze occasionally drifting across the room. She felt a rush of warmth flood her cheeks as she imagined what it would be like to dance with him. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice that he was already looking at her, a smile crept from the corner of his lips. He made her way towards the bridal room. She one last time wanted to make sure Ria was not as nervous as Yoongi was, but she knows her well. Ever since Yoongi had introduced Ria to her, they become instantly best friends. She remembered when she used to tease Yoongi mercilessly about his obvious feeling to Ria. At the time, he had brushed off her teasing with a nonchalant shrug, but as the year passed, it's become increasingly clear just how deeply he had fallen for her. And now, dating after years, they are finally getting married. She walked inside the room and saw Ria with her furrowed brows looking at herself in the mirror. Ria, sweetie, you look like you're about to go for exam. Ria breathed and hugged Yoon tightly. I think this is worse than exam. I'm really nervous. Can't believe you're actually doing this. Is it even normal to be this nervous? Of course, silly, it is normal. This is the biggest step after all, and you are about to bound to Yoongi for life. You are comforting me or scaring me, she said, pulling away from the hug, and Yoongi smiled mischievously. This is just the start. I have got the list of his bad habits ready to go. Should I start with the socks that lays around, or the snoring that could wake the dead up? Please spare me, are terrible in comforting people. Yun laughed as she suggested Ria will. You don't have to worry about a thing. Just focus on marrying the man of your dream. Now let's get you ready to walk down this aisle and steal Yoongi heart all over again. Thank you. Ria's father entered the room. She flashed him a warm smile, signaling that it was time to escort her to the ceremony. Her father returned the smile, his eyes brimming with pride as he looked at his daughter. She turned to walk out of the room, but as she took a step forward, her dress caught on something, causing her to stumble slightly. She looked down at her dress as she moved a little to free her dress. She felt a tug and heard the sound of fabric tearing. Her eyes widened in horror as she looked to see her dress torn, a long rip down the side. Oh no, this can't be happening. What happened? My dress. She whined and Rhea eyes widened in concern. Shoot, wait, come here. We can fix it. How will it fix? It's so ugly. Well, fine, we will find a way, honey. Don't panic, she said in reassurance. As Rhea moved towards the door, Neil voice halted her before she could leave. Wait, where are you going? I know someone who can help you perfectly. Just wait here, I will send the help. As they both stepped out of the room, leaving Yun alone with her torn dress, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping in. She gazed at her reflection in the mirror, the torn fabric hanging awkwardly. The dress seemed, when she had no backup option, she doubted if anyone could do something about it. But her heart skipped a beat when she saw Jungkook standing there. He was usual calm and looking so damn perfect, his eyes dark and intense, locked onto hers before traveling down to the torn fabric of her dress. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she felt a surge of embarrassment at the sight. Jungkook, what are you doing here? Her voice wavered slightly with surprise, unsure of what had brought him to the bridal room at such a crucial moment, but his gaze restrained, fixed on the torn dress, his expression unreadable yet oddly assuring. Your help? Her brows furrowed in confusion. Huh? He took a calculated step towards her. She visibly gulped when he stood inches away from her, his hand casually tucked into his pockets. And this man has that damn aura around him that can make even a confident person froze. Her breath caught in her throat as Jungkook bent down slightly to inspect the damage. His gaze focused on the torn fabric. A light hum escaped his lips. When his gaze met hers again, she shuddered involuntarily at the intensity of his gaze, the way his eyes seemed to hold the entire universe in them. You look confused, sweetheart. His voice was so smooth and deep, sending shiver down her spine. She blinked, momentarily losing herself in his gaze before snapping back to reality. Oh no, I was just surprised, she stammered, cursing herself for losing control of her composure. The mere sound of her sweetheart from his lips had always been enough to send her senses into overdrive. It was ridiculous. She knew to be so affected by just a word, but she couldn't help it. Jungkook had a way of making her feel like she was the only woman in the world, and it was the most exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Her mind conjuring up vivid fantasies of his hand on her, his lips trailing free along her skin. She cursed herself for inappropriate thoughts, but tried as she might, she could not suppress the heat that boiled up in her belly at the mere thought of him. It's just a word, get over it, she always called herself. But deep down she knew that Jungkook held a power over her that she could not quite shake. A power that left her breathless, wanting, and entirely completed, infuriated. You think I can do it? He asked again, now making her completely snap out from her thoughts, and her eyes widened. No, I did not say that, she blurted out, feeling a rush of embarrassment creep into her cheeks. He was a fashion designer after all. He knew his way around fabric and stitches better than anyone. Who was she to question his abilities? So then you should sit back and relax while I do my work. His tone was gentle yet firm, and she found herself nodding obediently like a good girl, a thought that made her cheek burn with embarrassment. She knew she was not the type to easily fall into line, yet he seemed to have a way of effortlessly commanding her attention. She watched as he moved behind her, pulling out the chair with a practiced ease that made her heart flutter. He gestured for her to take a seat. She complied, sinking into a chair. Why wouldn't any girl fall for him? He sat in front of her. She watched her work on fixing her torn dress. She couldn't help but feel captivated by his skills and ease. His hands moved with confidence, delicately examining the tear and then started to mend it with precision. She admired how effortlessly he handled the fabric, as if fashion was second nature to him. It was clear he had a talent for it. Her gaze fixed on him, unable to look away. She still remembered the first time they met, the first encounter, the first time she felt her heart skipping a beat, the first time just a slight brush over their fingers brought a series of butterflies in her stomach. She thought it was impossible, but then she couldn't deny it any longer. He doesn't do anything, yet he does so many things to her which are quite unexplainable. With a final hum, he stood up, placing the needles back into his holder. He rummaged through the dress table drawer to find something else to make it look more natural. She turned her head to look at him. What was he doing? Stand up? His words were simple, but they held an undeniable power that made her obey without hesitation. She rose from her seat, holding her breath as he circled around her, his gaze sweeping over her form that made her pulse quicken. Is it done? His eyes lingered on her for a moment before he snapped back, satisfied, his smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Almost, he replied, his voice low and velvety. She watched intently as he tapped a small, delicate accessory from the drawer and carefully added it to her dress. There, now it's perfect. He voiced out with satisfaction. He stepped back to admire the dress, a pleased smile gracing his lips. She glanced down at her dress and her eyes widened in awe. It was flawless, the delicate accessory seamlessly blending with the fabric, leaving no trace of the previous day as if he worked a magic on it. Wow, it's perfect, thank you. In gratitude slipped from her lips as she gazed up at Jungkook, her heart swelling with warmth. His smile only deepened at her words, a softness in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. It's my pleasure, anything for you, sweetheart. His affectionate tone sent a flutter through her chest and she couldn't help but bite her lips nervously. She needed to compose herself before she lost completely herself. Let's go back before we get late for my own brother's wedding. Her attempt at casualness was betrayed by the slight tremor in her voice. But before that, aren't you forgetting something? Forgetting what? She asked in a confusion, only for him to take a step forward. He'd surged to her cheeks as his fingers slightly brushed against her skin. Forgetting to thank me properly? Did he just do what she thought he did? You're welcome. His tone was nonchalant, as if he had done was nothing out of the ordinary, but for her it felt like her world turned upside down in that brief moment of intimacy. Her heart raced in her chest. How could he be so unbothered while she was on the verge of losing control over herself? A part of her wanted to pull him back, kiss him like there was no tomorrow, yet she restrained herself. Let's go before we are late. He spoke and she nodded in agreement. He took her hand in his, leading her out of the bridal room. The bride turned her back to the group of eager girls ready to toast the banquet. She found herself swept up in excitement too. She had not planned on catching the flowers, but as they sailed through the air, she instinctively reached out and snagged them. To her surprise, the banquet landed in her hand, and she couldn't help but smile as she turned to see who caught it. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she jumped happily. She happily twirled and looked around, only to realize that she was single. Never dated anyone before. How would she ever find someone to marry? A pout formed on her lips until her gaze landed on someone across the room. Jungkook was standing there, a soft smile playing on his lips as he raised his eyebrow in amusement. Her cheeks flushed with warmth as a realization dawned on her. Was she really single, or had she been overlooking the one person who had been there for her all along? Rhea walked over with a mischievous glint in her eyes. She dropped an arm around her shoulder, her grin widened as she nudged her teasingly. So, Yoon, who's the lucky guy you're going to marry? Her cheeks flushed even more at the playful jab, knowing all too well that Rhea was well aware of her little crush on Jungkook. Oh, I have not quite decided yet. Maybe I will stay single forever. Come on. You both knew there's someone you had your eyes on for a while. Her gaze flickered to Jungkook, who was watching her with that same soft smile. She felt her cheeks grow warmer as she melted, as she realized Rhea was right. Maybe it was time to stop denying her feelings and take a chance on love. Well, who knows, maybe you will be seeing me walking down the aisle sooner than you think. I'll be waiting for my invitation then, Mrs. Yoon. The teasing tone in her voice made her giggle nervously, but deep down she couldn't deny she felt excited at the thought of marrying him. The wedding ceremony was now over. It has to be the best fiction in a while. The guests began to depart, bidding farewell to the newlywed and making their way home. She felt a wave of exhaustion over her as she watched the fastest come closer. Her feet ached from dancing, her cheeks hurt from smiling, but now only she wanted is her bed and sleep her tiredness away. Do you want me to drop you home? She heard the familiar warm voice, comforting voice around her. She turned around to see Jungkook standing there, his gaze fixed on hers. I will go with mom and dad. Why not me? I don't want to bother you, she murmured, her gaze dropping to the ground. You know you could not be a bother. Besides, I want to make sure you get home safely. She felt her cheeks resolve weakening at his words, a warmth spreading through her cheeks at the thought of being alone with him. With a nod of agreement, she silently agreed to go with him. Spending more time in his company, he extended his hand and she stared at it for a moment before realizing that he was asking for her hand. Her heart skipped a beat and she placed her hand in his, and he clasped their hands together, walking now towards the parking lot.